It's U of L Today on 93.9 The Ville. Here's your host, Mark Hebert.
And welcome to U of L Today with Mark Hebert on 93.9 The Ville. We're so glad you're joining us today for the show that's about all things U of L except for sports. Well, except for today. We're going to talk a little bit about athletics and sports a little bit today with the guests coming up here in just a minute. Coming up a little later in the show, we got a rundown of all the U of L alumni events coming up in the next few months from Amanda James. And the winners of U of L's prestigious Grawmeyer Award in the World Order say worldwide poverty will never go away without countries cracking down on crimes against the poor with stable police forces. They have practical suggestions on how to do that, and we'll hear from them. But first, he won 675 games as the head men's basketball coach at U of L. His teams won 2 national championships while he was the head man, and he's in the National Basketball Hall of Fame. Now he's a special assistant to the president at the University of Louisville, making dozens of appearances each year to help recruit students, engage alumni, and raise money for U of L. You probably know him as Denny or Coach Crum. I know him as Susan Sweeney Crum's husband. Welcome, Coach.
Oh, well, I like your take best. Yeah.
Susan Sweeney's a husband?
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
That is not a bad place to be. So welcome, Coach Crum. And with him is Jonathan Israel, who is working with Coach Crum on his scholarship fund. So welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the scholarship fund first. Then we'll get into some other stuff at U of L, talk a little basketball maybe, and some things going on campus. Coach, tell us about, you've got the Denny Crum Scholarship Fund. What is that?
Well, Fifth Third came to me in 2001 and asked if I would consider running a scholarship foundation with the intention of providing scholarship money for students that were outstanding students and also participated in community service in different ways. And they wanted to help keep the better students here in town was the intent. And we got started. They gave us $53,000 to start.
That's a pretty good seed money there. It's $53,000.
Yeah. And we gave $7,000 scholarships the first year. And this year we gave $100,000 scholarships. And
so you gave 100 scholarships of $1,000 each?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Wow.
And then this year, when it looked like things were going to change for me in terms of retiring and the other things, I actually am not going to retire this year. I'm going to actually stay on for at least another year or two. Who knows how long? They've told me I can stay as long as I want, which is a nice situation to be in, and I certainly appreciate the university for allowing me to do that. I'm 79, and so who knows what your health will bring, but I'm certainly in a good position when it comes to being in position to help. And so what I've done is I've given my scholarship foundation, which we had already given out over $500,000 in scholarship money.
Just to U of L kids?
U of L students, 99% to U of L kids.
Students from Jefferson County.
And they're just from Louisville, right? These are just Jefferson County students that come to the University of Louisville.
They could be from across the river as well.
Metro Louisville.
And they could have, initially they could go to U of L, to Bellarmine, to IU Southeast, Spalding, and now it's strictly a U of L thing, and what we've done is I've given all the money that we had made, other than we'd already given out over $500,000 to kids, and I think there was around $650,000 in our portfolio that we had, and I gave that to the university. And they in turn they've assigned Jonathan to help us run the organization and
raise money, set up
raise
events,
money for it and stuff. And our goal is to get up to $2 million. That's a minimum that we'd like to have. That way we could give $100,000 worth of scholarships every year. They have a rule that you can only give 5.5%. So it takes $2 million to make that 5.5%. And I think we should be able to do that. I don't know how long it'll take, but Jonathan and I will be working on that. And so it's a labor of love. It's a great cause. There's so many kids that, especially with tuition, keeps going up, and there's a lot of kids that need financial aid. And I don't know. I have mixed feelings. You want to give it to someone that needs it as much as you do someone that deserves it. And so it makes it kind of difficult. But by the same token, if you give kids that are willing to stay in and work at it and do their community service and do well academically, then we're right on track.
Now, Jonathan, this also is not just new students. I read a little bit about it. It's also could be kids who transfer from JCTC, existing students, current students at the University of Louisville can apply for it each year, right? Is that right? So it's not just incoming students to the University of Louisville.
It's a 4-year renewable scholarship, and it's open to entering freshmen, transfer students, JUCOs. Coach really wanted to be available to any student that needed the scholarship. I think for so long people have recognized Coach giving scholarships to student athletes, and that was, I think, the perception he wanted to change is make sure it's not an athletic scholarship. It would be open to any student who needed the funds, who presented the leadership and community service that he kind of demanded.
This has nothing to do with athletics. It's strictly academics and community service.
Right. So if somebody's listening out there, a parent, student, somebody, and they want to track you guys down or find out more information about this scholarship, how to apply for it, those kinds of things, where do they go?
They can go directly to UofLalumni.org/Denny Crum, which that application is on his site. And they also can go to the university's financial aid website, which I think is lowell.edu/financial aid.
Right. So financial aid website or UofL Alumni website, either place you can find information about the Denny Crum Scholarship, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
All right. We're talking with Coach Denny Crum and Jonathan Israel. We're talking about the Denny Crum Scholarship, and I'm going to turn to a couple other things, and we'll give that information about the scholarship before we get out of here one more time. What has changed the most at the university? You've been at the university for how long? 30-something?
45 years.
45. Geez, I way underestimated that. So 45 years. All right. So Attila the Hun was still around when you first started at the university, right?
Been through a lot of different coaches, a lot of different faculty people, a lot of administration. That's changed 3 or 4 times since I've been.
Well, let me ask you about something else, and I don't know how much this is out in the public, but everybody on campus is aware. The Crawford Gym is going to be torn down, and a brand new academic building is going to be built in that place on the campus. What are some of your thoughts on Crawford Gym and some of your memories? And I know we could probably spend all day because that's where your teams used to practice. But,
we made a living in there for a long time, and it isn't what you would call a glamorous place at all.
No.
In fact, I think they've been using it for intramurals and with the swimming pool underneath and everything. Why, it's a historic place. We won 2 national championships playing and practicing in there, and we shared it with the Kentucky Colonels off and on over the period of years, and it was a place that when I first came here, they told me they were going to push to get a new arena on campus. Of course, that never happened, but we got one downtown that's second to none. So that's a good thing in the long run. And, of course, you look back on it, and I'm not sure how we got all the great kids we got, because I think they came because of Freedom Hall, not because of where we practiced.
It certainly wasn't Crawford Gym.
No,
where
it
they
wasn't
practiced,
Crawford
the
Gym
practice facilities.
Yeah, that attracted them. But, boy, there was some dynamite basketball being played in there year-round. The summer times, and during the spring and fall. I mean, when season wasn't in vogue, we had all kinds of players from other universities, from the pros, and I mean, there was really a lot of great 5-on-5 games that went on in there with great talent, and of course all the arguments and everything that goes along with who fouled, who and whom, and no, I didn't. No, that wasn't a foul. And I mean, you can just go on and on. But
I do remember some of those summer games. There were some of the best college athletes in the region that came back to Louisville to play in Crawford Gym.
And then they played down at the Dirt Bowl too,
Absolutely,
down on the West End as well.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I know that there's been some discussion. I think you're trying to gauge if there's any interest from folks in, or any way to do it, perhaps taking some pieces of the Crawford Gym floor or some of the things out of there and helping the scholarship fund. So are you in the kind of
definitely the fundraiser side of me is looking into that right now. We're I think they've got a July date of starting to try to tear down the building, but we wanted to get pieces of the floor and see if the members of the community are interested in buying a piece of that floor for just memorabilia and so forth. So we're definitely looking at that, and hopefully that could benefit the Coach Crum Scholarship Fund.
So I think if you're interested in something like that, you might call Jonathan Israel, last name spelled just like the country, at the University of Louisville. What's your phone number? Go ahead.
852-6910, 502-852-6910. We definitely would love to hear from those people that are interested in it.
And again, as we're wrapping up here, Coach Crum, give us a little bit of background information again about the Scholarship Fund, how people can track down, either donate or look to have their child sign up and perhaps apply for one of these scholarships.
Yeah, you can go online, I guess, and just look up, go to the Alumni Association and look up my name, and then click on from there, or you can go right on the university's, what do they call that office, Jonathan?
The webpage, Financial Aid.
Financial
Aid office, and get opportunities there to sign up, and they've got a committee now that's going to evaluate the different candidates, and hopefully we'll be able to keep giving our $100,000 scholarship.
You don't know how important that committee is to Coach Crum. Coach Crum read every scholarship application the last 15 years.
We had over 200 last year.
And he's reading these applications, and he's impressed with all these students. So that's why we've got 100 students getting a $1,000 scholarship, because he wanted to give every student something.
You got to narrow it down.
I said, Coach, we got to narrow it down.
You got to be the bad cop sometimes.
You get to a point where how do you separate a 3.98 from a 3.97?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really
there's
difficult.
a lot of good kids applying, so that's a good thing.
A lot of great kids applying.
All right. Coach Denny Crum, Jonathan Israel from Coach Denny Crum Scholarship Fund. Appreciate you being here. And, Coach, I'll have you back on. We'll talk a little bit maybe this summer about Crawford Gym and some memories. How about that?
I'd be happy to do that, Mark.
All right. Tell Susan I said hello. Routine everyday crimes against the poor are doing as much to perpetuate poverty as anything else on the planet. That's the view of the Grawmeyer Award winners in World Order, who were recently in Louisville picking up their $100,000 check, the Grawmeyer Medal, and presenting their winning ideas at UofL. My colleague Kim Butterwick interviewed Gary Hogan and Victor Boutros while they were in Louisville.
Tell me a little bit about the ideas expressed in your book, The Locust Effect.
Well, the central idea behind the locust effect is simply the idea that we're not going to be able to solve poverty until we solve the problem of violence against the poor. When we typically think of global poverty, we think of dirty shacks and dirty water and disease and hunger and those types of problems. But what we've learned is that just as endemic to poverty as those problems is the problem of being chronically vulnerable to violence. And so what the book, The Locust Effect, does is take you into that hidden world that you wouldn't otherwise see of gender violence, of slavery, of police abuse, of land theft against common poor people, and to see the way that there's no way those poor are going to get out of poverty unless that violence is controlled. So it exposes that problem, but also shows what it is we can do to actually provide security for the poor so they can one day get out of that poverty.
So what are some of those things that can be done to get them out of poverty?
Go ahead.
Well, one of the things that we've seen as we've been doing this work is that the public justice system that's responsible for enforcing the laws that protect the poor from this common everyday violence that Gary was just talking about are broken for lots of different reasons that we talk about in the book. And so in order for us to see this sort of change, to wedge open that bottleneck that's holding back the progress of development in the developing world, we will have to be able to engage that public justice system and start to make it work for the poor.
So this epidemic of violence that we're talking about in the book has been unleashed because of the total brokenness of criminal justice systems in the developing world. In the common developing world countries, they will have things called police and things called courts, but they don't actually work the way we'd imagine they would of enforcing the law. So, in fact, the UN has found that most poor people live outside the protection of law. So if you and I could just imagine what it would be like for even a day to have no access to law enforcement, to pick up the 911 phone when you have an intruder in the house, but have absolutely no one on the other end of that line. That is the actual experience for the common poor person in the developing world, because the police systems, the court systems have so collapsed. And so the primary priority that we have to address is to begin to transform these broken criminal justice systems so they actually enforce the law. Because over the last 50 years, they've had great change in the laws on the books. So the problem is not that the poor don't have laws, it's that they don't have law enforcement.
Interesting. So I'm interested in the title of the book, The Locust Effect, and what that means.
Well, the title actually comes from the phenomenon that was actually experienced here in the United States, especially for prairie families who would come out here in the 1800s and do what they could to try to find a life out of poverty. And they would be working on their little farms, and they'd be working for years to try to get out of debt, to try to provide a future for their family. And then on a single day, swarms of locusts would descend here on the prairies, and they would just destroy all of the efforts of the poor that they've been trying to work on. And so the picture of the locust really is just of the predatory way that violence destroys the hope of the poor. And that in a single day, in a single event in life, violence can come and just rob everything that the poor have been trying to do to get out of poverty. And so that is the picture we want people to have, is that the poor are struggling to get out of their circumstances of desperation, and that effort is just totally undercut by these predatory forces of violence that are not being controlled in the developing world.
I'm interested to hear from each of you, kind of your backgrounds and your work that kind of brought you to the point of writing this book, what brought you together.
Well, very briefly, the book really does emerge out of 20 years of work with International Justice Mission in the developing world, providing direct service to victims of violent abuse and oppression in the poorest communities. And over a couple decades, what we found is that the reason the poor were victims of so much violence is because they didn't get actual law enforcement. So what the book really does bring forward is this experience of year after year working in these very poor communities and seeing that they had laws, but they didn't get law enforcement. And so for me personally, that is where the sort of perspective has come.
And Victor, tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I met Gary almost 2 decades ago now, when he was just launching International Justice Mission, and was very compelled by the vision that Gary and IJM were launching, and really changed the course of my life. I ended up going to law school and becoming a lawyer, and ending up going to the Justice Department, where I worked in the Human Trafficking Prosecution Unit, where we investigated and prosecuted human trafficking cases across the country, and began to help build capacity in countries around the world who were asking for some help training their teams on how to do trafficking cases effectively.
And so we had this experience in the field together in the developing world of this phenomenon of violence, and also of the brokenness of these justice systems, and thought there's a story that just needs to be told here. And so we worked for about a decade together preparing a course that we first launched at the University of Chicago Law School, and spent about 10 years putting together the scholarly material to not only demonstrate what the data was now beginning to show about violence, but also the way in which it was undermining economic development and poverty alleviation. So while we've been working in the field, we've also then been able to collaborate on doing sort of the research in a scholarly way that was needed to be able to really build the case for the way violence is undermining the effort to alleviate poverty.
So you said you guys have been in the field. I mean, are you seeing progress in setting up these, systems that will help prevent violence?
Well, that's what the book is really intended to do, is not only to present the problem, but also pivot towards hope and show what can be done. And we now have a number of transformation projects that we've been doing at IJM around the world, where you can see criminal justice systems moving from failing the poor to actually protecting the poor. And the revolutionary thing now is we can measure it. We can measure performance standards of local law enforcement in the developing world and watching it getting better and better. And then you can also see the way in which violent crime against the poor also decreases as that performance increases. So not only is there a success now, but there's also measurable success. And what we're interested now is in replicating that story so that people recover a sense of hope about this so that we can do more.
So I'm curious, how has winning the Grawmeyer Award, what has that meant to both of you, personally and professionally?
Personally, for me, it's just been a tremendous encouragement. We have felt in many ways like we were a voice crying in the wilderness a little bit about this problem, because the violence is something you don't see. We were also trying to point out to, as important these poverty alleviation programs are, they're going to be undermined if we don't address the violence. And there was this sense of the way the global poor just are not being heard about the violence that they are undergoing. So for me personally, it's been a tremendous encouragement that, these voices, which we've tried to just bring to the forefront, are at least now being heard. And when those voices are heard, I think things will change.
Mm-hmm. Victor, what about you? What has it meant?
Yeah, for me it's been a great encouragement too, because when I first learned about some of these challenges in the developing world, I did have the sense of just feeling overwhelmed. You feel like the problem is so big and so intractable that you almost just sort of you don't want to draw near to pain that you feel can't change. And so for me, the great hope that's come through doing this work and seeing the work that Gary and IJM are doing is seeing that actually they do change. They have changed, and they are changing now. And that allows me to draw near to this work and to invite others into it. And so I think that's been such an encouragement that the Grawmeyer Award has brought to me, because I know that its focus is not just on world impact, but ideas that are really feasible, things that can really change things. And to me, that's very exciting, because unlike some other categories of crime, the crimes of everyday violence can actually be deterred when police and prosecutors actually start showing up and enforcing the law. As Gary was saying, you can see measurable decrease in those crimes. And that's really transforming, not just for the lives of the poor in terms of just enjoying the fruit of the law that their government's intended for them to have, but also in allowing the really smart development programs that are happening in the developing world to be accessed by the poor, for them to enjoy the fruit of that really good labor.
Well, the intention, Charlie Grawmeyer started this program because he felt that ideas could make the world a better place. And I can certainly see it's very tangible how what you've presented and the solutions that you've offered are making the world a better place. So thank you.
That was U of L's Kim Butterwick talking with the winners of the Grawmeyer Award in World Order. Amanda James is with the UofL Alumni Office, and she's going to tell us about some of the stuff going on for you UofL alumni out there, and for others, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Amanda?
pretty much any of our events are welcome to not only alumni, but community members. We're gearing up, especially for our new alumni, for the students who will be graduating in May. And we have some events for them, including a drive-by decal event where they can stop by on May 12th from 12 to 2, and we'll stick a UofL alumni sticker on their car right outside of the University Club.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Right outside of the University Club. And then that same night, we'll be doing Graduate Day at the Downs. So we'll have a bunch of students out there. If any seniors have not registered yet and want to come, they need to go to UofLalumni.org to do that. And we'll be...
And parents need to tell their kids about that one. That's a really fun event.
Yeah, it is. And this year it is twilight racing. So it'll sort of be that evening racing on a Thursday. So I think it'll be a really fun event this year. We'll have a selfie booth. We'll have alumni swag. Enter to register for a diploma frame, which are expensive. So a really fun event. And then we'll also be at commencement rehearsal. So commencement itself is Saturday, May 14th. But May 13th, we'll be down at the Yum Center. We'll have some different alumni councils like Arts and Sciences, Kent School, Speed School set up, and just sort of welcoming them to the Alumni Association.
So you got a bunch of brand new alumni. What about 2,900, I think, graduating in May coming in?
We're excited to have them and to sort of welcome them. And then something we do every month is a First Tuesday happy hour. So our one in May is going to be at the Hub, and we're partnering with our LGBT Council on that one. But then also very exciting is the one in June. It'll be June 7th at El Camino. We're partnering with our MBA Council, but speaking of those young alumni, or our new alumni, we're going to be inviting those folks out with a special invitation, sort of as their first real alumni event to meet some new, but also more seasoned, if you will, alumni at that. And
older
again,
alumni, you can say it, it's okay.
And community members are welcome to come to that as well. So if you're a fan of the university, you're welcome to come out to any of those First Tuesday happy hour events. And we try to hit up different spots every month across the city and trying out some different areas and that kind of stuff as well.
So the one June 7th is where?
El Camino.
And the one in May is
May
where?
3rd is at the Hub, which is on Frankfurt Avenue. I think it just opened probably, I'd say about 3 months ago.
So brand new place. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else going on this summer coming up, or as we move in? I guess everybody ought to get on their calendars at least. When is homecoming?
That is a great question. The homecoming game will be Saturday, October 22nd, and we will spend that entire week leading up we're going to have a golf scramble. We're going to do our Day of Giving again. We'll have our Alumni Awards, and then Friday night we'll do the homecoming parade right here on campus, and we love to see not only students but community members, anyone come out to that. So that'll be on Friday the 21st.
Friday the 21st of November.
October,
I'm
yep,
sorry.
And then October 22nd.
Who do we play that day? Who's the
I
football
believe
game?
it's Georgia Tech, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be. All right. And anything going on this summer that kind of keep things rolling while the students are out?
So we've recently started a few different series. We're doing some online networking events. We have a women's series. One date for that is June 11th at Bend and Zen Yoga. The owners are actually alumni. And so we'll be doing a yoga class there, or a mini yoga class, if you will. And they'll sort of talk about how they started that business. So that's a little bit further down the line. We're going to do some stuff in late summer. With our Young Alumni series that we kicked off, we were actually just there recently, or had an event with that recently, a Great Flood Brewing Company. They're the alumni, or the owners there are alumni. So we're going to have some more events in our women's series and our online series, optimal aging seminars. So we have a new website set up for that, UofLalumni.org/series. And then also our UofL loyalty cards app. If you didn't get all the dates for these, if you download that UofL loyalty cards, you can literally see all of our events in there and then copy them over to your calendar, Google or iPhone calendar directly through there.
All right, so things coming up immediately are the commencement events, and also tonight, Tuesday night, you'll have the event, the first Tuesday event at the, what was it again? I'm sorry, it's a brand new place that just opened.
The Hub.
The Hub.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so those are the big things coming up. All right.
Thanks.
I see we whipped through all that pretty quick, didn't we? All right.
That was easy.
Amanda James from the Alumni Office at the University of Louisville. Thanks for being on.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thanks for listening to U of L Today with Mark Hebert, and go Cards.